You're listening to the Youth for Life podcast with Michelle Baum, Director of Y for Life at Lutherans for Life, where we prepare youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording of our Chats for Life program to find out how you can be live too on our next Youth for Life podcast. Well, I want to go ahead and start tonight by introducing you to our guest speaker and then opening with prayer. And of course, after prayer, I always have a couple of questions for you guys. And we may have more that come in that kind of flow in and out because it's still Christmas break for some people and not for others. So, but I'm so glad that you guys came. Tonight, our guest speaker is Virginia Flo, and she is our regional Director of Minnesota and National Conference Director. Am I saying that correctly? Yes. Okay. So, and she's going to be our speaker, but before she begins, let's go ahead and open with prayer, and then I'll have some questions for you to think about. So please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank and praise you for this day. We thank you for this evening and this time to gear up for rest. But especially tonight, we thank you for the opportunity to talk about the gift of the elderly, the gift of age. Not everyone gets a chance to greet old age, and not everyone gets a chance to be close to people who are elderly. And Lord, we thank you for the gift of life and the gift of years and the gift of the elderly. And we ask, Lord, that you would be with us tonight as we explore ways that we can support those around us who are aging and find out how they might be able to support us. We ask all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so tonight's questions. So when you think about the term elderly, right, or aged, what challenges do you think of when you think of maybe that time in life? Do you think of challenges or do you think of opportunities? What do you guys think?
I usually think of challenges.
Sure.
Like not getting around to go to the places you used to be able to go to all the time, I guess.
I think about, the opportunity to share wisdom to younger people if you're more elderly.
Okay. So you recognize that there's a gift that they might be able to give, to share that wisdom. Good. What other thoughts come out when you think of the term elderly?
I think of fulfilled, what, because when we're younger, we always wonder what our futures are going to hold. But I think when you're elderly, everything's happened, probably most things have happened that you want them to happen. So you kind of have a sense of fulfillment of your life already.
Okay. And maybe a long-term view of how God has worked in their life, maybe to bring blessings. Any other thoughts? Okay. Then I have one more question for you before we allowed Virginia to take over for the rest of the time. And that is, when you think about the elderly, I want you to, our theme for this year at LFL is from invisible to indispensable. And someone who's indispensable is absolutely essential. So tell me, how are the elderly absolutely essential? What do you guys think? How could they be essential in the life of a young person?
I think just providing, I think somebody already kind of mentioned this, but just like that wisdom that kind of comes from experience. And I think a lot of people tend to overlook that because things from back then and it wasn't the same. But I think just having lived that long and having this gives you those life lessons that you can share with people.
They help us just shape ourselves into the people we become, whether it's morally, spiritually, and just all the above. They just help shape us as a person.
All right.
Yeah, they contribute a lot to your family relationships, and even just knowing someone who's elderly. It can be when you grow close to someone like that, it's so hard to imagine life without them, even if you can't really pinpoint anything specific that they give to you or whatever.
Sure, we recognize that the lives of elderly, the lives that are involved in our lives are very important and essential in many and various ways. And tonight, our presenter is going to be able to share some of those things. So I'm going to hand it over to Virginia. And Virginia, would you prefer that they ask questions as you are presenting, or that they wait until the end?
I actually don't care, whatever works best.
Okay.
If they have a passion to ask something at the moment, they certainly can. And I'll just, I may not see them though, so you'll have to stop me. I may have to, if I share my screen here.
Yeah, so when Virginia shares her screen, again, just like we've done in previous times, if you have a question, then just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask, because we won't be able to see your hand raised. But feel free to do that then.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm excited about being here. And by the way, this is not a an autobiography or anything like that, even though I am a little older than you and Michelle. But
you are many years young. Many years young.
I have had the opportunity to work with a number of elderly people, starting with my parents, who were a little older when they got married. So they were older, and I had, gone through life issues with them, both health issues and changes in where they lived in their lives, and nursing homes and things of that sort. And today I am a caregiver for a couple that are they don't live with me, but I do care for them. He is in an Alzheimer's care center. He suffers from Alzheimer's. He's 96 years old and has a long history. And she is 91 and a retired Lutheran school teacher. And she lives alone in their home right now, so I help her quite a bit too. So I have a little experience working with them and with other folks over the years. But Michelle talked about our theme, from invisible to indispensable, and based on 1 Corinthians 12:22, on the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And hopefully by the end, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end again, that some of this will come to fruition and you can understand it better. And it sounds like many of you have a good understanding of what that is already. And so we want to talk about connect and engage with those of age. And that could be anybody for that matter, because we all are of age, just a different age. But in terms of age, as in the senior age, that's what we're going to focus on tonight. And some of this you may know, but hopefully you'll find some new things that you can gather. I just wanted to comment a little bit on I know that your comments about the elderly, both the challenges and opportunity perspective, and you were all right on all of those. They've had a lot of experience and they have a lot of wisdom when it comes to life. But many things that go on in life, even today, are new for them. They have not experienced a pandemic in their lifetime. They've read about it, like you've read about it, but they haven't gone through it like, we're going through right now. So much of that is kind of new to them as well. They've gone through different things. They've gone through the big flu epidemic and things of that sort that we had a few years ago, but not to the extent that we have the coronavirus today. And of course, what happened yesterday in Washington, D.C. is something that they haven't experienced before either. They certainly have some thoughts on it, but needless to say, but you are so right on all of your points that they've lived life, they've experienced many things, but I don't know if we can say they've lived it to its fullest because their life isn't over yet. And so we'll see how that all ends when we come to that. So we're going to talk about a number of things about connecting and engaging today. So we're going to talk about the joy of engaging. Everyone desires unconditional love in their life. And guess what? That is exactly what seniors can provide. There's a lot of unconditional love that's being given. Your parents give you a lot of love, but it's a different kind of love than the unconditional love that you can get from seniors. And you'll understand that better as we go along. And here's an example. When I was in grade school, I had a few piano lessons, and I decided not to do that anymore. And then we had the opportunity. We ran across, and you're going to laugh at this now, but I ended up taking accordion lessons. Maybe you won't laugh at that. You all play the accordion, right? Okay, I figured you probably all did. And so that was kind of a fun thing to do. And the reason I did it is because my grandfather encouraged me. He was from Germany, the old country, as we used to call it. And he was thrilled to death when he heard an accordion player and I had the opportunity to take lessons. And I struggled when I first started because it's a unique instrument. And he would sit for hours and listen to me struggle through that music. And he just had a big smile on his face. He'd clap after the songs, and it was wonderful. And to be honest with you, it was pretty awful, I'm sure. Now, my mother, on the other hand, who was a pianist and played organ at church, her focus on this was, well, if you just practice a little more, you'll get better. And so that was love. She wanted the best for me, but it wasn't that unconditional. She had conditions involved. I need to practice more. Whereas in my grandfather's case, he just would listen to anything I did because he was in love with whatever I did. So there's a difference. And we all need a little bit of that in our lives. And it makes a big difference. Engaging with seniors can be very rewarding. It's a simple statement, but it's true. And connecting with seniors is beneficial for both you and them. And you have a lot in common. And I'm going to share some of those things shortly. And you can bring joy to someone who is in great need of joy. Seniors often feel alone, and there's reasons that they, feel that way, but things have changed in their life. If you've gone through change, trust me, they've gone through way more change than you have, and they've survived it. And yet, I know they have this reputation for not wanting change, and that may be true, but they've certainly gone through it over the years. There's some similarities that I ran across when I was doing some homework on this about similarities between youth and seniors. And I want to just kind of run through these really quick. Transportation. Youth, number one, are getting permission to drive and have high insurance rates. The seniors are told not to drive and also have high insurance rates. So you're in a common category, even though you're at both ends of the age spectrum. Work. You're told too young, too inexperienced in a lot of cases. Now, maybe some of you are past that, but certainly at one point in time. The seniors are told they're too old and too experienced, and they lack that familiarity that they need with technology today to have lots of jobs. Income, the youth start with a low-paying job, whereas the seniors have no income that they have from earnings today. They certainly have things like Social Security. They may have some retirement, benefits, but they're not taking in regular income. So they pretty much have a low-paying job too. And if they're only on Social Security, they're going backwards, because every year when there's an increase in Social Security pay, there's also an increase in Medicare, and they really never get an increase in pay. So the economy is going backwards for them. And the cost of living is going up while they're going nowhere. Housing, you're moving away from home if you're going to college, and I hear a lot of you are doing that. And some youth have to live with their parents for economic reasons. And seniors are moving out of their homes. They're going to smaller places, assisted living, and in some cases, nursing homes and things. And sometimes they live with their adult children for economic and for health reasons. So something in common there. Friends, your friends are moving away too if they're going to school, and their friends are moving away or they're dying. Dependency. Do your parents ever tell you what to do? Well, their adult children tell them what to do. So you have something in common perhaps in that arena as well. And from an emotional perspective, in the youth sometimes occasionally get depressed and feelings of hopelessness. And in some cases, it can even lead to suicide. Well, in seniors, they are occasionally depressed, feelings of hopelessness, and sometimes it can lead to suicide. So you have a lot more in common than perhaps you thought you did. This is a study of some information that I gleaned from the Stanford University study on aging and longevity. And I just want to read through this. I probably can't do that so easy. There's benefits from engaging with youth and seniors. First of all, I'm going to read this. When older people contribute to the well-being of youth, it cultivates a sense of purpose and extends benefits both ways. You both benefit when you are engaged and working together, and especially when they're contributing and they feel like they're contributing to your well-being. It's important for society when youth receive attention and appropriate mentoring, which seniors can provide. I think if you will find that the mentoring that you might get from a senior is sometimes much better than a Hollywood movie star or a professional sports player or some of those folks that are serving as mentors today in terms of people that our youth look up to. And if you can have a relationship with a senior that is full of wisdom and excitement and joy and the love of Christ, you'll find that to be very, very rewarding. And this one, it says, older adults receive opportunities to learn about new technology and trends while experiencing the excitement of seeing the world through a younger perspective. They enjoy hearing from you and what you're doing in your life, what's exciting about your life, because they don't have that hands-on opportunity that you do in a lot of places, especially in the area of technology. You know, you might think they don't know anything about it. They don't care about it. They don't have a computer. They don't have internet. They don't have a phone, mobile phone. Guess what? They still want to know about those things. And they get excited when they hear you talking about it. My 91-year-old, she said, I said to her, I'm going to make a presentation this evening and I'm going to make it on seniors. Really? Where are you going for that? Now, she probably asked me where I'm going for that about 4 times today, because I think I mentioned it 4 times when I called her a few times. And I said, no, I'm going to do it on the internet. She said, oh, isn't that nice that you don't have to go out in this weather? I'm like, I live in Minnesota, so, you know, weather, there you go. But it's a beautiful day here, by the way, so I wouldn't have minded doing that, but there's no place to go. We are shut down. So anyway, so older people love to hear about technology and what's going on and the trends. And if you share that, they're going to be excited to hear it. There are some concerns that seniors deal with, and I wanted to share some of these. So they might be a little negative, but I think it's important that you know. And so when you're dealing with them, you understand, you know, where their mind is going and why they're thinking about these things. In 2019, it was the first time where there's more people over 60 in the US than under 18. First time in our history. That causes some concerns. Number one, there are increased medical costs for an aging population. Secondly, there is greater housing and transportation needs. Around me, I don't know where you all live, but I have high rises going up everywhere where I live, and it's amazing. Fewer young workers contributing to Social Security, and that's created some concerns for our seniors. They're concerned that our government will squander the Social Security fund and their money will be gone. And for many, it's their only source of income. And so when we don't have that fulfilling of replenishing the funds that are going out, of course there's a concern. And unfortunately, and this doesn't matter which political party you're part of, because they've all been guilty of it, those funds have been used for other things other than just Social Security. And so I don't think it'll ever be replaced, but there is a concern because if they can't financially take care of themselves, it's a concern. And then the US Administration on Aging says that by 2030, 1 in every 5 residents will be 65 or older. We have an aging population in our country. And anybody know why that is? Why don't we have a lot more younger people that are replenishing the population?
Oh, I was gonna say people in general aren't having as many kids or having kids at all.
That would be true. I would also say that abortion has had a lot to do with it. We've had 61 million abortions in this country since 1973, and it definitely has caused a reduction in our younger age group. No question about it. And so, yeah, there's a conscious decision not to have more, but it's the manner in which we're doing it, perhaps, that makes it not correct. For a civilization to maintain its self, you have to have a one-to-one replacement. So your parents would have to have at least 2 children to replace themselves, and you as well. And that isn't happening across the board. In Europe, they're already down to 1.7, and therefore, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to sustain their population going forward. Canada is at 1.9, the last I heard, and we are still at 2, which is good. And a lot of that has to do with the influx of Hispanics who have larger families in a lot of cases. And from a Christian perspective, that's really important because they are Christian. So needless to say. Anyway, so those are some statistical things. There's also a concern that may not be totally felt by the senior citizens, but by a concern for them would be physician-assisted suicide. The elderly, the disabled, and the mentally ill are targets and are at risk of people taking advantage of them through coercion and talking them into participating in assisted suicide. I don't know how familiar you are with that, and I know you had a presentation on that, right, Michelle? And I don't know if all these folks were there, but needless to say, if you are in, there are 10 states today that have legalized physician-assisted suicide, and many states are a target for that. The pandemic slowed that down because legislators stopped meeting. But as soon as they get back again in session, some of this will come up again. I know Minnesota, where I live, we're a target. So we have established a coalition here of other faith-based organizations and, medical people and others that are supportive of that, trying to stop it if we can. So they are a target to when you reach an age where you are physically having medical health conditions, you may be in a position where you would qualify. And a qualification would be if you have a terminal illness that says you will die in 6 months if untreated. And so the unfortunate thing is, like my mother would have qualified, she was a diabetic. And so if you don't get treated and you are a diabetic, you would die within 6 months. You'd probably die within 6 days or less. So needless to say, the elderly are certainly a target for that, as well as the disabled and those with a mental illness. Number one reason people ask for assisted suicide is they do not want to be a burden to their family. It's interesting that one would think that if you had a terminal diagnosis, that you would be concerned for pain, that you wouldn't want to suffer, that you wouldn't want any of these things. Those were not the issues when people were interviewed in states that have legalized it. For those that actually asked for the medication, the lethal doses of medication, they were told that, no, the reason I want it, I don't want to be a burden. Now, as Christians, we don't want that to be our legacy, that our family members felt like they would be a burden to us, because we're here to care for each other. And so we would hope that that never would be an issue. And they're at risk because in the physician-assisted suicide laws, the families don't need to be included. They don't even need to know about it till after they're gone, which is also a scary thought, because family needs to be together when you're going through end-of-life decisions. And needless to say, they're at risk because of that. And the world views the value of life relative to the quality of life. No, you're no longer productive, a member of society, and so that limits one's value of life according to the world's standards. And so someone that's in a wheelchair, has a walker, uses a cane, they're not able to get around like they used to get around. And so the world would say, well, they're not really very productive. And therefore, if we're going to make judgments, and this came out loud and clear during our pandemic, because when there were discussions about who gets to have a ventilator, there were discussions about, well, who should be, living? Should the young get it first? Should the older ones be waiting in line? And maybe they've already lived their life and they don't really need to, be living much longer. And so there's an inappropriate assessment of value and measurement when you look at physician-assisted suicide, and the elderly are usually at the bottom of the list. We as Christians know that God loves life. no matter at what stage of life you're in or how productive you are. He created it. He loves life. When we fell into sin and we were doomed, he brought Jesus here to earth and saved us from our sins through redemption. And through the waters of baptism, we are promised eternal life. Never in God's message do we hear death. It's all about life. So physician-assisted suicide is a real issue in the end-of-life elderly world today. And then we have these things called robocalls. And seniors are a target for this fraud and all of these scams that are going on. And the sad reality is that they can easily fall into that. And so, you know, if I get a call, I immediately call up some seniors that I know and say, hey, are you aware of this? If you get this call, be aware. This is a scam. Don't fall into it. And we think it's, you know, it's sometimes you talk about robocalls, you think, oh, that's kind of funny. What's going on? When you get these calls, you know they're phony, but you know what? They don't. Many of them do not. And so we need to watch out for them and kind of keep our eyes cleared. So if they get a call and my seniors I work with have all gotten these calls. So you're a $100,000 winner or you're $1 million winner. All you need to do is send us a check for $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. Well, you're going to get that back when your money comes to you. But that's going to handle, cover the handling costs and the legal fees, or just give us your bank account number and we'll put it right in there for you. And so these are calls. I got one of these not long ago. Someone has breached your social security number. If you don't validate your ID with us, your number will be canceled. Now a senior gets that call and it's like, oh my goodness, my number is canceled. I can no longer get a social security check. That's my source of income. And so these calls are coming in right and left. If somebody can come up with the idea, they're coming up with it. And of course, maybe you've gotten these yourself. You now qualify for 0% interest on your credit cards. Just give us the numbers and we'll check and to see if you qualify. And you give them the numbers, you're doomed. And there's many, many more. The list goes on. I actually contacted my two senators in Minnesota, Senator Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar, and asked what they were doing about robocalls because the seniors are at risk. And I got this wonderful, nice little email back. Basically, Amy, by the way, was too busy. She was out, I think, campaigning or something. But Tina Smith wrote back to me and said, well, we're not working on it, but if something comes up, we'll certainly support it. And I'm thinking, why don't you write the bill? I mean, that would be nice if you took the lead and took care of our seniors, because this is a problem. I talked to the lady that I take care of, and she keeps getting these letters that her husband must have given some money at some point in time to a group that's supposed to handle keeping her Social Security. And every letter she gets, and she gets them almost every other day, it's like, just send us $15. That's it, $15. And then we're going to put you on the list. You're going to be the first one on the list to save your Social Security if we can get bills passed in Washington. And I said to her, they can't do that. If there's a law made that Social Security is saved, it's saved for everybody, not just you. Do not send $15. But every time I see her, she got another one of those letters. You think I should send $15? I'm like, no. Put it in your contribution envelope for church. It's a better place. Anyway, so these are issues. So how can we help? Very simple. I just got some things here. Stay connected with the elderly. Keep them informed. If you're aware of things that are going on, like I just explained, the robocalls, make sure they know about it because they can get taken in with these things. Treat them as adults, even when they begin to fail. As their mind forgets things, treat them as an adult. I read something just yesterday from a person, an older man who actually has Alzheimer's. He's in the beginning stages, he's been diagnosed. And he talked about the fact that when you reach that point where you actually have to go into a facility, they talk to you like your children. Now, I've been in those facilities and I understand why that happens. But as someone like him that actually has it, it was really disturbing for him to hear that. So Don't talk to older people like they're children, even though they may do some childish things now and then. They are still adults and deserve the respect. And let's talk now about engaging and connecting, because it's that relationship that is going to be something that you can gain a lot from, and you can really help the seniors. So engage and connect possibilities. Who can we engage and connect with? First of all, grandparents. I don't know that you have grandparents living. I would suspect many of you do, but there's certainly people that you can engage and connect with. Not just when you have family events, not just when your parents go to see them and then you go along. It's you doing it on your own. And that's really, really important, because it really makes them feel significant. Neighbors, you have elderly neighbors that you've gotten to know and that you can connect with. I think we all probably have some of those. I mean, our world today, I live in a townhome complex and I don't know all my neighbors, and I feel bad about that. And so it's something that I guess we got to pay more attention to. I have a lake home over in Wisconsin. I know every neighbor over there. So it's not that Wisconsin's different than Minnesota. It's a different lifestyle. I go outside, I walk around my place out there, and I get to see my neighbors in their yard, and I go talk to them. Here, we go from the townhome to the garage, out the driveway. We rarely talk to our neighbors. Family friends. You may have older family friends that you have that you could connect with, that your family has made friends with. Church members. I think, one of the things I was impressed with during the pandemic is that our members were assigned to members, and people made phone calls. People were calling the elderly in our congregation regularly to see how they were, to engage with them, have a conversation. It was a wonderful thing. Some of these elderly people never gotten a phone call like that. So if it took the pandemic, I guess there was something that was good that came from that. So there are church members. If you don't know who they are that you might want to connect with and make a call now and then, ask the church secretary, ask the pastor. They'll be able to help you. Or the pastor's wife, right, Miss Yell? They can help too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And community residents. I live not too far from a community center, and they have senior events going on there all the time. It would be interesting if you asked the community activities director or something if there's someone that could use a little personal contact. And she may or may not give you names, I don't know, but it would be a possibility. Depends on how big a town you live in, perhaps. Nursing homes, senior living facilities are all places that if you don't have a grandparent and you want to connect with someone, those are places that you can find older people. They hang around those places, especially nursing homes and senior living facilities. All right, here's a verse from Psalm, a few verses from, is it Psalm 71? I covered it up. I want to read this to you because it talks about being young. It talks about being old. Rescue me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of the unjust and cruel man. For you, Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth. Upon you I have leaned from before my birth. You are he who took me from my mother's womb. My praise is continually of you. I have been as a portent to many, but you are my strong refuge. My mouth is filled with your praise and with your glory all the day. Do not cast me off in the time of old age. Forsake me not when my strength is spent. And this is a wonderful, wonderful verses that talk about the youth and that God created. And it talks about the need for God in our old age. He will certainly not forsake you when your strength is spent. I love those words. They're wonderful, but we don't want to have that happen, that we are cast off in the time of our old age. This verse is very, very strong, filled with the respect for God and giving him all the glory and the praise. And that comes from your time you were conceived all the way to the end of your life. It's a verse you may want to remember. Verses. So how do we engage? First of all, pray for and pray with. I don't have a picture of a senior in here, but I want to put that in there because we want to pray with them. When I go over to the lady that I care, and I happen to be there in the morning sometimes, I participate in her morning devotions, and she does them religiously every day. And she so loves that when I can participate in that. And so, yeah, engage with and always include the Lord in those engagements. And then engage in connection examples, make phone calls. You know, maybe we're not used to doing that because we're so used to doing texting and other things that we communicate with people. They love phone calls. And here's the one that we never do, and that's write a letter. They're not on Facebook every day and don't have 500 friends that they can connect with on Facebook, but they'd love to get a letter from you. This lady, that picture, I'm in love with that picture because she has the expression that I have seen many elderly people have when they read a letter. Letters are important. And we do have pens and pencils, and we can still do that now and then because you know what? They read them over and over and over again. And if they come from someone that they love in that unconditional love environment like you, they would love to have that. Now, if they do have a computer, and there are some older folks that do email them. They love just hearing from you. Text messages every once in a while. If they have a cell phone, I love you, Grandma. Oh my, that would just speak volumes to her. That's all that it takes. I love you, Grandma. Might want to put your name there because you might not realize your phone number and who it's coming from, but wonderful. Play games with them. You see the people playing chess over on the right. I play Chinese checkers with Mrs. Ron, and she is a whiz at it, and it's scary because she beats me. I actually went out and got an app for my phone on Chinese checkers so I could learn to play them better, and she still beats me. But I do beat her now and then, and she complains about it. But you gotta engage with them, but take the time. One year when my parents were older, my dad was failing, but they were both failing. I gave them a Christmas gift, and I made it very apparent. I gave them a card, and I said, I'm going to give you time. I gave them time that year where I actually went out of my way to change my schedule and spend some time with them. And I think that's a precious gift that you can give. You don't have to give them a gift in writing, just do it. And spend some time with the elderly now and then and let them, and I know you're off at school and that's hard, but when you do get home, drop in. I had an aunt that lived in north of the Twin Cities, out of the cities away, and it was on a route that if I took that from work to go to my home, my lake home in Wisconsin, that I would drive by. And I always tried, I knew I was driving that way, to take an extra 15, 20 minutes and stop at her house. I think that the joy in her voice and on her face was so incredibly exciting. That I would stop and see her. And usually in the summertime in particular, she loved planting flowers, and she'd be always out in the backyard, always sitting on her patio that she could hardly walk. She had arthritis so bad, but she would be on her knees out in that garden weeding or sitting on her back porch. But just for me to stop for 10 minutes, 15 minutes was just such a blessing. And I know that made her whole week. So make time if you can. Listen to music, but I'll warn you, pick the music carefully. Because some of the music that I know that you enjoy today may not be the music that they enjoy. So you might want to have a conversation, but if you give them titles, would you like to hear this or that? It's not going to work. Just try to find a balance someplace there. How about singing? What?
So we do have someone on here that makes music of his own. Sawyer does. And
Oh.
What do you think, Sawyer? Is that music that grandparents would like?
It really depends on the perspective, but 9 times out of 10, Definitely not. No.
Probably not. Probably not.
Is it Christian rock? What is it? Is it
Christian rap.
rap? Oh, rap.
Rap music. Yeah.
Well, if you give them a script to follow along, they might enjoy it.
I don't think they want a script.
Okay. all
Anyway, I
right.
just had to bring that up. Just Sawyer does that on the side. So it was
All
good
right.
that you said listen to music, but be careful about what you choose. I think that's important.
Of
So,
course, I'll tell you this: if it was my grandpa sitting there and you were doing that, or your grandpa, maybe it wouldn't matter what the music was. Just wanted to hear what you're all about and doing. They may ask a few questions about it, but and then play an instrument. You know, bring a guitar along, drum along, sing your songs. I think you might be able to get by with it if you tell them you wrote it. Of course, I don't know. Maybe I better think that one out.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, interesting. It would be good for them to know you wrote music, though, even though, you know, you don't share it with them, maybe. Okay. Listen to music, sing with them, play an instrument. Music's a wonderful, wonderful way to engage across generation lines. It's just a wonderful way. Companionship. When we're out of this pandemic and we can again go outside and go visit, just spend some time visiting. It can just be a conversation. You can see that I tried to put some pictures in here that would show that, you know, taking somebody out to the park and just, you know, wheeling them out, walking them out, whatever it takes, driving them out. On the right, you can see that there's some cooking going on. You know, people, the women in particular that are elderly, they love sharing their recipes. Have them tell you what's their favorite recipe and then go over and make it with them someday. That would be just a super, super gift to give them. And then share your technology. As I said, it doesn't matter if they have it, if they understand it, seeing it. I got a feeling though, the lady on the right with the phone, probably it is her phone, she's pushing buttons. Because there's one thing about the seniors and technology, they're afraid of it. They don't want to touch it. I don't think she'd be pushing buttons unless it maybe was her phone. Technology is an amazing thing in that it does so many things that they don't know anything about. But it has some incredibly good, they have an attitude that the internet is such a bad thing. But I know that now we're talking about something and we don't have an answer, every once in a while, Mrs. Ron will say to me, could you look that up on the internet? Because she knows that there's an answer someplace. She doesn't know it's Google or it's, you know, Yahoo or one of those, but she certainly knows where to find it and is amazed at all the things she's, I mean, I get these comments and how does that all get out there anyway? And who are these people that are giving you this stuff? I mean, those are questions that you may not be able to answer, but at least she's inquisitive about it. Technology, use it to your benefit. And then there are verbal ways to communicate. First of all, ask questions. Draw out the answers, kind of like Michelle was doing early in this conversation with you. Asking questions until you came up with some answers and we're engaging. The same thing's true with the seniors, but I'm here to tell you, they love to talk about their past. So if you ask questions, it probably won't take too long and they're going to engage. What was your favorite thing you did when you were growing up? Do you have a hobby? Did you work outside the home if you're, a woman? And if she didn't, by the way, it's okay. I encourage her to talk about her family. Tell me about your family. The lady on the right, you can see she's showing pictures of her family to the young girl that's with her. That's a really important thing for them to talk about. And now it's like, did you serve in the military? When and where? And the elderly today that are maybe in their 70s, for instance, they're not elderly. Did I just say that? There's enough people now that were there probably have been some women that served in the military, especially during the war. I just had a lady that died not too long ago she's probably near 90, but she was a nurse in World War II. And so there are people but in particular, just an amazing thing. I was trying to help the folks that I'm working with that he has never applied for a VA benefit ever. 96 years old, and he served in World War II. And so we had to dig out his military papers. It was the most incredible experience to dig out these folded papers that were never looked at probably in, 80 years. And you start getting into a conversation, and we had to provide copies of all this paperwork, and he was honored, had these, special awards. He served in Japan. He took a ship over to Japan and worked at a hospital in Japan after the war. It was towards the end of the war when we had occupied Japan. It's an amazing thing when you start talking to them about their past. I read an article about a teacher that was dealing with students that were thinking of dropping out of school. She apparently had the duty of dealing with when they were reaching that point in their life, and she always took them over to the veterans' home and had them speak to the veterans, and many of them changed their mind after those discussions. I don't exactly know what they talked about, but hearing the stories, and I'm sure some of the camaraderie that these vets had that lived together, it's just an amazing thing, a gift that the elderly have to offer. But we never hear about it unless we ask questions. And then be ready. Be ready for their questions back to you, and they will be genuinely interested. They love to hear what a Christian youth is engaged in because it restores their faith in the future of our country. We have started a practice at our conferences, our Lutherans for Life conferences, of bringing in students that have won an essay contest, either a state winner or a national winner. And we have them read their essays. We just did it. We were up in West Fargo in August. And we had the state winner who drove an hour and a half to get there, and she read her essay. The people, every time we do that, the people are just in awe. It restores their faith in our youth, because I'm sure many of our elderly, they see things on TV, and it's not always a good impression that are left of what's going on in our younger generation today. So when you can share with them what you're doing, even if it's Christian rap, it's okay. Because it's Christian rap, right? I don't care if it was not Christian rap, but I'm sure the words are all appropriate, right? Are you?
Depends, yeah.
Okay.
It's like 1% Christian rap.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. But it's all clean language, right?
No.
No swear words in those words. No, no.
No, none of it's clean.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So he's going to have to plead the fifth on that one. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, he admitted to it. I heard it. Well, okay then. I'll pretend I didn't hear all that. But,
Yeah.
So you're all going to college. You're getting an education. If you're still in high school, that's great. You plan to finish. They love to hear what you're doing in your life, and the fact that you're an active youth. It's wonderful. They will appreciate hearing that. I have some good counsel verses that I wanted to share with you to bring this to a close, and that is, Paul gave some counsel to Timothy when he was going to be a young pastor from 1 Timothy 4:12. And he said, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity." If you can all follow that example, and no one will despise you for your youth. And I don't understand why he said that, but I think he was talking about the fact that you will be better respected, because they're going to assume as a youth you don't know anything probably, but the fact is you know a lot. And as a Christian, you have your heart in the right place. So do these things and be an example. And then in Matthew 22, when Jesus was asked the question, "Teacher, which is the greater commandment in the law?" And he said to them, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment." So if our heart is based on on Jesus and our love for God and our respect for what he has done for us, if our heart is in the right place and our soul and our minds are all focused appropriately, this is the wish that our Lord has for us, and it will help you lead a wonderful, wonderful life. And so as we come back from invincible to indispensable, I think we can agree that the elderly provide wonderful, wonderful, wonderful value to our lives, and they are indeed indispensable. And so connect and engage with those of age. Okay, Michelle, thank you
Yeah.
all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Virginia. It was very interesting. So what I want to do next is I want to just real quick, Virginia gave us lots and lots of ideas for ways that we can engage with the elderly and ways that elderly might be a blessing in our lives. And so give me one or two things that you thought maybe, yeah, I could do that. That's a great idea. Or maybe you have an idea of your own. What sort of things were most interesting or encouraging? Go ahead, Jenna.
I really like, our grandparents moved in to live with us for like a year ago. And it was really fun in the first times because Grandpa really liked all of the music that was going on when he was a kid, and I got to listen to that with him, and we spent like hours on his tablet looking through like all his favorite songs, and he was like, oh yeah, I want to show you this one and I want to show you this one. So that's something I really like doing, and also just, I mean, phone calls, I guess.
Yeah, so phone calls and so not just sharing your music, but listening to their music, right?
Yeah, it's always really funny because some of the music is really weird and hilarious.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the crooners, and that's because my grandma shared the crooners with me. She loved the crooners, the 20s and the Nat King Cole, and so I listened to them today. Yeah.
Yeah, same actually. Like I found some artists that I really liked, and it was just by listening to some stuff that he wanted to show me. So that was really fun. Yeah,
good. That's great. What else? Who else has something that maybe triggered, oh yeah, I could do that, or that sounds like that's something I could do?
Well, my grandma and I share book recommendations. Like she's given me books to read, and I give her like ideas for books I've read that I liked.
Yeah. Wonderful idea. That's a great idea. I'm a big fan of reading. What else?
On my list. Sorry, I didn't have that on my list.
Oh no, see, now we're just, Virginia can add them and do the next presentation and have even more ideas. What other ideas do you guys have, or what other?
I think, just like spending time with them in general. My grandparents live like 3 blocks away, so I see them quite often, which I love, and I think just kind of like consciously recognize how much us spending time with them, or just like walking over there and like playing a game of pool, or
there you go,
doing like in the backyard or something with them, like just those little things, like how much those mean to them.
Yeah, definitely, especially if your grandparents live close. What a gift, right?
Yeah, really.
And time is definitely an option. What other things?
Well, for me, I'm not as in touch with them as I probably should be. I generally just like give them a phone call every holiday. So probably like visiting before I go off to college, and then visiting again whenever I get back. So I could balance that out instead of just a phone call every holiday.
That would be nice. That would be nice. I have to laugh because I grew up in a different era, of course. I'm a little bit older, but I remember back when my grandmother got her first telephone. She lived in St. Paul. We lived out in Rosemount, which is about 20 miles south of the cities, and my mother and her used to speak in German, so that because we had an 8-party line, and they didn't want anybody else to hear their conversations, because everybody, as soon as the phone rang, doesn't matter if it was theirs, they picked it up. Everybody listens, 8 parties, and so they spoke in German. And they probably talked about their neighbors a bit because they knew they could. So one day my mother picked up the phone and a lady was speaking in German. And so somebody had moved in that spoke German. So they realized they couldn't do that anymore. And then when the phone was going around, I really sound like I'm old, don't I? But I was pretty young. I was pretty young at that time. My aunt and her husband got a phone later than anybody else did. We had one for years. And by the way, it was long distance to call from Rosemount to St. Paul, that 20-mile distance. It was long distance. So, but my aunt got a phone, and my dad's sister, but I don't think she realized, because she lived about 15 miles away, that the phone, you didn't really have to talk loud because you were so far away. And so she'd scream in the phone so my dad could hear her. And guess what? He screamed back at her. They had this screaming match going on the phone, and because neither one of them knew how to use it. It's unfortunate, but that's growing up. So not for me.
Great. Maggie, did you have an idea?
Oh, I was born in Germany, and I was raised in a bilingual German-English household, so I know the feeling.
You could have been the 8:30 line then.
Yeah, my dad doesn't speak English to us, so we learned that way. But my dad's a pastor, my mom's a deaconess, so I was raised like around the church life, and I went on one of the nursing home visits with my dad once, and one time she wanted to come to church, but she couldn't because her family makes her stay in her nursing home. But anytime my dad would visit was like one of her most like favorite times of the whole like month. And then when my dad would do chapel at our local nursing homes. We live in a pretty small town. He would take either my brother and I with us, and we would play the piano, we play piano and violin, so he would have us do the music for him, and they would like strike up all these conversations with us and like ask us so many questions about it. And when my grandma was still alive, she was my only living grandparent. I lost her about 2 years ago. She would brag during the year about how I could play the piano, and then when I would come to visit, she'd have me like perform for them so they could all see. And then I'm not trying to brag, but like that was her, like she knew I could play the piano, so she would just brag about it. And with our little area, a lot of people here are older, and for our Oktoberfest at our school, one part of the thing is you play dominoes, because everybody around here plays dominoes. That's how they bond with each other. They have tournaments at the fairgrounds now. So, yeah.
Love it.
Excellent idea. Yeah, that's great. I know when one of my grandmothers, before she died, she was a shut-in for many, many years. And she always loved it when she had a series of pastors at the church. They would take calls and a new one would come. And she said her favorite pastors were those that knew how to have a conversation, that weren't just there to give her communion, but also to check in on her, to actually, to talk. So I think, again, when Virginia mentioned time and conversation is pretty important. Anyone else want to share something that kind of went, piqued their interest? Then my final question for you tonight is this. So if you have a life team, what sort of things could you do as a team? Because we've talked about individuals, right? What we could do as an individual: go see our grandparents, make a trip before going back to college, right? Sitting down, having a conversation, sharing music. What could you do as a team?
My school, I went to a Catholic elementary school, and I transferred over from the public school during my 7th grade year of school. And then I came to the faith and I got baptized. And I remember one of my most moving moments in my faith and stuff was when in 8th grade, our class took a trip to a senior living home, and we colored Valentines with them and baked cookies with them and decorated and helped them eat. So it was kind of cool for all of us to go together, and then we all got a group of seniors that we could communicate with. And I feel like, especially in our like religious schools, like when COVID is over, obviously we should probably
Right.
plan to do more stuff like that to teach more people about that, because like it's not only fun for you because you get to meet somebody like new and like somebody who's like experienced all things in their life and learn from them, but it's also really cool for them too to have like the youth come in and like talk to them about stuff too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful. They love that. Yeah, go as a group. I think they'd really enjoy that. You know, I keep thinking I'm a prayer partner to a student at our Lutheran school. And I keep thinking we should do that in reverse. We should have prayer partners for seniors
Yeah.
and send them, you know, cards now and then and things that you draw or whatever you do with your elementary school prayer partner. Would seem to me that you could do that as well, only the other way around. I don't know if a life team could organize that, but
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great idea. Any other ideas?
I had a question that I
Sure.
wanted to ask. So I was thinking, especially with COVID and the pandemic and everything, and how basically all the nursing homes have been closed. And I've talked to a lot of people from our church about how really bad that is for just mental health reasons. And our Sunday school teacher he works at a funeral home, and he said that he's seen a rise in deaths due to just loneliness because a lot of people don't have family to visit them. So I was wondering, like, do you have any ideas for how to reach out to people you don't even know, because it's really sad that no one would visit them and stuff. And it's not like we can really visit them right now anyway.
yeah, I mean, the encouraging thing is that at least here in Minnesota, because it's even worse in the Dementia and Alzheimer's Care Center because they're not quite sure what's going on. And so they've lost contact with their family. It's a really a bad situation. And I know that in the case of Marvin, they ended up putting him on hospice care, because when you are on hospice care, then your family can come in. And so, but you know, the family goes in with the mask and the shield and everything, and they're allowed to come in. For a while it was 2, at the end it was 1 person could come for an hour. But the rules are changing. And this last week, because in Minnesota there's a 10% factor or something, that if you reach that you're not exceeding whatever the number is, that now they can open it up. So now the families are going to be able to come in again for the first time since March and visit there. They did have what they called porch visits, where they could go outside because they had a little patio area, and they did take them outside, but they're now going to be able to come inside, and for a short period of time, like 45 minutes, but 45 minutes beats no visit. And I think the family may be surprised because, you know, with Alzheimer's disease, in these 6 months or 8 months that they haven't seen them, it could have advanced significantly. And so, I mean, they tried Zoom visits and things like that. So that's not an impossible thing to do, a Zoom visit with somebody and encourage them. I would not, you don't have to know the person to send you have to talk to the center and see what the possibilities are. But, you know, sending the letter that somebody could read to them, you never know when that spark is going to hit, that they will, you know, come to, you know, something will strike them. I found that to be true. I was a choir director for many years at a church. I take my choir to visit a lot of these homes and facilities, and music was always the trick. Somebody would be sitting there not participating, just looking really low, and but we'd sing a song and that would just spark them up. It was just amazing. We had a gentleman, his wife was a member of our choir, and he actually was a chemist at the 3M company. So he was a very brilliant guy and had Alzheimer's and was failing towards the end. He was totally basically comatose, sitting in a wheelchair. And we went in at Christmas and sang at the home that he was at. And we stood around him because we had gone to his home when he was in his real home, and he could still participate a little bit. But at this point, we didn't know if he was just even know that we were there. But his wife said, please sing Beautiful Savior. It's his favorite song. And we sang Beautiful Savior the best we could because we did this the year before when he could still, speak to us. And he sat in that chair and a little tear trickled down his face. So we knew we had touched him where he could understand what was, and he may have understood the whole thing. We don't know with people that are in that state. But if you're talking about a nursing home or an assisted living facility or those places which have also been shut down, some of them will allow you to send a care package, and you can send a nice, Christmas note if it's Christmas, or doesn't have to be I used to take my choir out at different times of the year because everybody goes at Christmas and carols. And so we would make a point to go out on Palm Sunday, for instance, and place in times like that because they don't have anyone coming in during those times of the year. So ask the home or the facility if you can, put a packet together and send it that would just go to anybody. A cookie or not today, you can't do cookies. Don't send cookies.
No cookies.
Got to be individually wrapped. It's got to be blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, you'll have to pre-purchase those.
A care note, a note would be wonderful. We're thinking of you. Jesus loves you. That in itself would mean a lot to these folks.
The other thing, Jenna, and that's a great question. It's a great question what you brought up. The other thing, not just music, but also elements of the liturgy, including the Lord's Prayer. A lot of times when my husband, as a pastor, visits people with Alzheimer's or dementia, and he will begin speaking the Lord's Prayer and they'll jump in, or he'll begin speaking Psalm 23 and they'll jump in, because these are things that they have from their memory from years ago. So one of the things that our church did this Christmas is we sang. We couldn't go in and do Christmas caroling, so we sang as a congregation and we recorded it. And then my husband, we uploaded it. And my husband, when he spoke to people, when he was visiting them, via Zoom or however it was that he could visit, there was a link, and the people that work in those nursing homes could play the link for the person that was there. So they could see the Christmas caroling and, doing caroling, which is, like singing, doing that during Lent with Lenten hymns, or during Easter, like Virginia said, Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, preparing something for people, especially if you're talking about a Christian nursing home, one where you've got people that have been in the church for a time. I mean, those things are going to help bring them back too. So I think if you contact a nursing home and say, I want to talk to some elderly people, they're going to find a way to get it done. They're going to find a way. So they bring in iPads into the rooms,
Right.
So
we just did at Christmas the music that's on this CD that went out to all of our shut-ins and nursing homes was recorded by the choir in 1978. And we pulled those hymns out and we put them on a CD, and these people, I got an email from a lady that said, I listen to this every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We've also got another side to this that we did way back in those days of favorite hymns. And so we'll be doing that in the next few months and trying to get that out to people, because number one, they might have sung in it back in that. They might have been a singer, and they might have certainly they were in the congregation if they've been there that long when the choir sang, and they feel a part of it. We're celebrating our 140th anniversary, so we wanted to do some of this in remembrance. But music is a wonderful thing. You can use music. I took my choir once. We had a chaplain to one of the local hospitals here in St. Paul, and we took the choir to sing favorite hymns. It was not necessarily Christmas, and we went to Regent's Hospital, and we went to the one floor that had the psychiatric ward. And so we went carefully into the psychiatric ward, and they tried to keep us, separate from the patients, but they all came out, and well, I think they all came out, those that could come out. And there was this one lady sitting in her wheelchair, and she was totally despondent. She just sat there. She was an older lady. And all of a sudden, she sat back in her chair and she said, can you sing Fight the Good Fight? And well, wouldn't you know, we had it in our little repertoire, and it had like 4 or 5 verses. And you know, that lady knew every word of every verse and sang with us. It was an amazing thing. And then, of course, when we get out of it, we were walking out of the psychiatric ward, and somebody came tearing after us, screaming at us. And one of the patients had gotten into our choir and was walking out with us. And so we had to stop.
Adventures.
I've got a few stories to tell about things like that. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Virginia, for sharing your expertise with us tonight. And is it okay if I send the students your email in case they have any other questions
Sure,
or
absolutely.
would like any more advice? That would be great.
The advice part I can give, but I don't know if it'll be the right stuff, because I'm still trying to figure out what to do with rap music.
Just let it go. Thanks for joining us for today's life topic. Check out whyforlife.org or email Michelle at whyforlife.org to find out how and when you can go live with us at our next Chats for Life session. Or join us next time, right here at Why for Life Podcasts, where youth learn how to be gospel-motivated voices for life.